welcome everybody. First and foremost, I want to applaud everybody that's here. I think I want to congratulate all of you for investing in yourself. You know, oftentimes, especially a lot of you I know that are on the line don't know me, don't know that much about me. I've been to enough auto repair related stuff to where we're constantly and seen to where we're constantly talking about KPIs and human resources and labor margins and parts suppliers and all the things that are wrapped around running our businesses, and the list goes on and on. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight as well. But we never really talk about, although Shop Pros, a very, very great program that I've been a part of since 2013, we talk about stacking up cash when our businesses are firing on all cylinders, we're stacking up cash. We never really hear a whole lot about what to do with that cash. And I thought that is so important. I know a lot of people that have done very, very well in the business, and at the end of the day, get to the finish line, whatever that looks like for them, not really enjoying the wealth that they should be enjoying. So I thought it'd be a great topic to get into that and talk a little bit about that. And I will say that this webinar isn't designed to dive deep into any one of the subjects, but a broad brush view to get your wheels turning, to get you thinking about the finish line and what that looks like for you. I would like to start at the beginning. I'd like to go back in time just a little bit to 1999. Because it wasn't always the way that it is now for my wife and I. You know, back in 1999, Claudia and I were, trying to advance. There we go. Claudia and I were living on the streets homeless. I am a recovered crystal meth, crack cocaine addict, and in order to supply my habit, I was a shoplifter, a fraudulent schemer. I was living on the streets homeless. By the time 1999 had come along, I was coming to the end of a 3-year downward spiral where I am what they call what they refer to as a low bottom drunk. I had to lose everything in order for me to straighten out. And I wasn't a good shoplifter. I wasn't a good fraudulent schemer, as you can tell from these mug shots. I got tackled outside of retail facilities on a fairly regular basis, and I was known on a first name basis by a lot of the local police and a lot of the local judges. And you know, I just wasn't a good guy back then. I wasn't I wasn't living the life that I wanted to live, that's for sure, and certainly was well below the means that I could be. And it came to the point one day where I sat in front of my my probation officer, and I had to get transparent, and I had to let her know exactly what was going on for the first time in my life. I told somebody that I was struggling and that I needed help, because she made it very clear that if I didn't get transparent with her and get honest with her, that it's very likely I was going to end up getting my probation revoked and end up doing the 2 years in jail or in prison. So I finally got my stuff together after talking to her. And this is just a few of the examples of where I was at and what it was like back then. Everything that my wife and I owned fit into the back of a 3-door Geo Prism hatchback, 3-cylinder, what we referred to as the getaway car. Here's a picture of the getaway car here. And that's just kind of the life. My wife has never done drugs or alcohol. My wife was addicted to me. And unfortunately, and I'm not proud to tell you this, but it's part of my story, I drug her down into that lifestyle of living in hotel rooms, living on the streets, and every time that I went to jail, she'd go back to her parents' house with her tail between her legs and stay there until I was released. And she would get to hear from her parents, "I told you so, I told you so, that guy's a no good bum." And they were right about that guy back then. But this is a picture of Jennifer Adams, my probation officer. You know, part of building wealth has really nothing to do with money. Part of building wealth has to do with letting people know that have made an investment in you, the changes that have taken place in your life because of them. And Jennifer Adams, up until the phone call she got from me to set up this lunch meeting back, I think this is October of 2016, we got reconnected with her. That's my wife on the right and my daughter on the far right, and my probation officer on the left. And until then, I was just a number, one of the many probationees that had gone through her office. And part of building wealth, as I said, is letting people know the difference that they've made and letting them know the transformation that's taken place, because she had no idea, what the end result has been for us. This is Richard Broadwater. By a series of events that could have only been orchestrated by God, I ended up in front of Richard not long out of rehab back in November 22nd, 1999. I stumbled into a 30-day rehab and started to get my life back together based on the direction of Jennifer Adams, my probation officer. And Richard saw me, what I looked like. Although I wasn't doing crack anymore, I still looked like a crackhead. And Richard was able to see beyond that and hired me back into my trade, which at that time was a service advisor. Excuse me for a second. And Richard is another one who made an investment in me. This picture was taken sometime the beginning of this year. I still go back there. And the funny thing is Richard is such a high-class guy. All the people that worked with me back in 2000 when I started work for him still work for him today. So when I go back there, I not only see Richard, I see all the technicians, some of them I hired back then. That Richard just one of those guys that people love to be around. He knows how to treat people well, and Richard made an investment in me. Richard bought my first set of teeth when I got sober. And this is the guy that Richard made the investment in. This is me at 8 months sober back in 2000, holding up a power steering fluid flush kit. And with a lot of my teeth still missing, Richard bought me my first set of teeth. Richard made an investment in me and taught me by his example how to invest in other people, because that's also the wealth that we create in the auto industry and any business and all of our areas of our life, as well as investing in other people. I will tell you, this is Kevin Nieto. I'll introduce you to him. Kevin Nieto is a diagnostician that any of us would love to have on our payroll. And he was on my payroll for 2 years almost. And his goal was to be a mobile diagnostic guy. He told me that the day that I hired him, and he wanted to learn from me a little bit about business, and he wanted to continue to hone his skills as a diagnostic guy. We're standing at the back of his diagnostic vehicle. He has recently retired or resigned from me, and now he runs his own business. I've been able to invest in him, and him and I work as a team doing mobile diagnostics, and he is now his own business owner. And this is Jeremy Sanchez. Jeremy's on the far right. Jeremy was the general manager of my second location. Worked for me for a number of years at my first location, became the general manager at my second location. And Jeremy Sanchez has since moved on, and he owns his own shop now, not too far from my location. I wouldn't consider him my competition necessarily, but he is a business owner. And one of the things I've learned, and I didn't really understand this when I was working for Richard, but you won't hold back the superstars. The superstars are going to shine and become superstars with or without your help. Jeremy is one of those. Kevin is one of those. The people that know what they want are willing to work hard enough to get it. Those are the people that we just need to allow them to be the best that they possibly can be for our team, as long as they are part of our team. But that's also creating wealth in all of our lives, not just the auto industry, but for me, it is the auto industry, is creating other business owners and pouring into people and seeing the results of that. And, to this day, still good friends with Jeremy, go to baseball games from time to time with him and his wife. And it's really feels good to be able to do what Richard did for me, for other people as well. This is 2003, a few years after getting sober. One of the things we worked on was our credit. That's part of building wealth, is getting your credit in order and looking good on paper. And I know that everybody's at a different season in life. Some of this stuff that I'm going to share with you is really, really basic. And some of this stuff is, for other people, will be an epiphany, a euphoric moment, if you will, because they're hearing some important things or just hearing it for the third or fourth or fifth time. But I just instinctively knew when I got my life back in order that it was time to work on my credit. And within 3, I had 99 negatives, 4 public records from from apartments that I had left on bad terms, and not one positive input on my credit report when I got sober. And 3 years to the day that I got sober, we walked into this home as our first home. Now, this picture was taken last year because we just renovated this house and got it ready to resell. We've had it for close to 15 years now. While I was working for Richard, I was probably, I hope I was the best employee that he ever had, or ever will have for that matter. During that time, TuneX, the shop that he owned, was a franchise, and I worked for that franchise. I mean, one of, I think, about 25 locations around the country, and we get to see the monthly sheets, and we would, as far as the KPIs that they followed, highest sales being one of them. I was presented with a number of awards. This is one of them while working for Richard. And Richard, by his example, taught me how to be an ethical, efficient auto repair shop owner. This is another award that Richard presented me with when I left him in 2004. Had a very, very difficult conversation with Richard. Guy buys your first teeth, and you're letting him know that you're moving on to buy your own business. And this is how he reacted on the day that I left. He presented me with this award. 2004, we were able to purchase our first business. I worked for Richard in Arizona. This business was not too far from my dad's home in California. My dad had brought it to my attention. And I'll tell you, we're talking about creating wealth. I wanted to talk a little bit about the terms under which we purchased our auto repair shops, because none of the auto repair shops that I purchased were any money out of my own pocket. This was a no money down deal. I didn't know that going into it, but I don't own any of the real estate for my auto repair shops. I want everybody to know that. I bought the businesses. The real estate, I have the first right of refusal should they ever decide to sell, but none of the owners wanted to sell. So I'm a renter at all of my stores. This one, the owner wanted $150,000 for the business. He was willing to carry paper on the $100,000 at 8% simple interest for 18 months. My dad loaned me the rest of the money, and therefore it was a no money down deal for us. Within 12 months, we were able to pay him back that $100,000. We didn't even have to go the whole 18 months. So the return on that investment is infinite. Any money that we pull out of that happens to be one of our, even that little 6-bay store is one of our best performing stores, always has been. It's a very, very good business for us, and has been a great investment of both our time and our treasure. This is 2007. I knew that I wanted to make sure that I was doing the right thing with the profits that we were getting, the cash we were stacking up, and I wanted to get some education on real estate. So I invested in myself. I decided to, my wife and I both agreed. We went to a free seminar. We know nothing's free. We knew there'd be something to buy. We were prepared. It was reasonable. We bought, and we established our buy, fix, sell business. To this day, we buy, fix, and sell homes, single family, multifamily. This is our office. It's a commercial residential mixed property. It has apartments in it, and also our office in it in San Diego County, California. 2 years later, we were recognized by our school as we were inducted into their Hall of Fame for our accomplishments with the education that they had provided to us. So we've done very well with that. The Lord has blessed us for sure. 2010, another shop became available. We had been looking for a couple of years, but very picky, just like everybody should be, for the criteria, the location, the demographics, all of it. Well, this also was a no money down deal. He wanted money down, but I just didn't use my money. This seller on this business wanted $400,000. The numbers really didn't show that it was worth $400,000, but the terms did. And again, we're talking about creating wealth in the auto repair industry. Instant equity on this was that we worked a deal. He wanted $100,000 down on the $400,000. He was willing to wait a year with no interest and no payments on the remaining $300,000. At the 1 year mark, he wanted a second $100,000, and he was willing to carry the remaining $200,000 at 6% interest for 6 years. amortized over 20 years. So this $100,000 down, we used a signature line of credit because we had a credit in order for both our business and personal. So we had a year to come up with the $100,000 to pay back to the line of credit, and the second $100,000 he wanted down, and we were able to pull that off. It was a no money down deal. And we ended up continuing to pay for the remaining 6 years on that. In 2014, 4 years later, this was an empty building. As you can see, this our third shop was not an acquisition. It was a building that had been abandoned for about a year. And we took and renovated the building. So we're renters. It's a little bit tough to renovate somebody else's building. So we got a promise to be there for 20 years, and the terms are all worked out. This is from Google Maps. Kind of a fun factoid. If you look closely at that guy in the black shirt waving at you, that's me. I just happened to be standing there when the Google car went by, but that's the shop. And this one was a little bit different. We're standing in the foyer of this shop, and this is what we turned it around into, that, which is what the foyer is now. This is in La Jolla, California. This shop existed for 40 years without bays. They just used a laser beam for security. I wasn't real comfortable with asking technicians to bring in their tools without having any bay doors. So we installed bay doors. That was part of our renovations. The back was a detail area. What was total waste of space. We completely redid that and installed lifts and made it a working bays in the back, trying to make best use of the space. And in 2017, this year, we decided to go back and back brand the first 2 locations. So all of our stores are the same brand now, Family Auto Service, all 3 stores. So everything is matching for advertising and websites and all of that. This is our Christmas party. This is some of my crew. They're very difficult to get everybody when you have this many moving parts in the building at the same time, but this was last Saturday. Had a fantastic time, and yes, I was Buddy the Elf. That guy in the elf costume next to Santa Claus, that's me. And I got to tell you, that was, they're still talking about that. This is, we had a great time at the party. Everybody had a really, really good time, but it was an opportunity to really let the employees know how much we appreciate them. And, you know, we're talking about building wealth. Sometimes you don't know, just like with your kids, just like with your employees, it's not much of a difference there when it comes to you're making an investment constantly and you don't really know how much of an effect you're having. And my guys and gals got together, and then in the middle of the festivities, they interrupted things, stopped the music and said, come on up to the front. And they presented this clock to me and something very special to my wife, just letting us know that they appreciate us. And I got to tell you, we've been doing Christmas parties for over 10 years, never had anything like that happen. I got to tell you, that really touched our hearts. So, you know, talk about building wealth other than money. I really feel like even investing in your employees and seeing what they give back to you is also an investment of wealth. So that was a phenomenal surprise that really touched my heart. 2016, I contributed a chapter to Brian Tracy's latest book called The Success Blueprint. I was awarded by the National Academy of Best-Selling Authors a Quilly Award for my contribution to the book. I do have that book available. Brian did a phenomenal job on his portion of that book about goal setting. Really, really good stuff. A great read. I would encourage anybody, even if you don't buy it from me, pick up that book. You can get it on Amazon as well. And then for those of you that don't know, I'm just about going to print with my book. Should be out the first quarter of 2018, talking about our life story. I can only give you a thumbnail sketch here, but our story of how I went from homeless to extraordinary success and happiness, and 8-step formula for achievement. Phenomenal book. A lot of auto repair mixed in with it. A lot of success principles mixed in with it. Really good read. That's my biased opinion, of course, but I know anybody that reads that is going to enjoy it. So that's about us. In my book, chapter 4 is titled, You Have to Prepare Now for What's Coming. And that's really what I want to talk about tonight is, I will tell you, and I already mentioned, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but But I know in putting together a presentation like this, we've got so many different people on the line. Right now, roughly 50 or so people on the line. There's so many different seasons represented. Some people have kids, some people have toddlers, some people are empty nesters, some people have been in business for 6 months or less, and some people have been in business for 45 years. Completely get that. So as we go through this stuff, just realize that, you know, if something seems really basic to you, keep an open mind, disengage from the cell phone and the double screening or anything. And I would just encourage you to disengage from anything else, and let's have an open mind and follow along, as I'm sure there's something in here for everybody, okay? So why do we attend events like this? I will tell you, you know, you're talking to a guy that's, or listening to a guy that's got an 8th grade education. How do I accomplish all those things that I just shared with you with an 8th grade education? It's because of events like this one. Continually investing in myself, continually at the beginning of the year, knowing already the number of it, having a goal anyways for the number of events like this, some 3 days, some 1 day, some 1 evening, 1 hour like this, events that I'm going to attend to continue to further my education and invest in myself. Because like the giant padlock shows there, you know, it's not uncommon for any of us to have 3 of the 4 numbers all lined up, and we're going to an event, we're not feeling like we're getting anything out of the event, and boom, all of a sudden we hear something or we're shown something, and quite honestly, it may have been something we've heard 3 or 4 or 5 times before, but we were not ready for it to really mean as much as it did when we finally got it. And it made a major impact and difference in our lives. So that's one of the reasons why we attend these events, is we're looking for that 4th number in any one of the areas that we set goals in, not just business, but also our, you know, our marriage, our role as a parent, our health, and all the other things that we set goals in. That's why we attend events like this. Not to mention, there's experts at these events, right? What's the definition of an expert? Someone from out of town giving advice, right? It's amazing to me that when my staff comes out of a class of any kind that I'm not teaching, and they've got an epiphany with something that I've shared with them 20 times, but because somebody else is sharing it, whether it be in a webinar or a live class, all of a sudden he's a genius. So I totally get that, and you'll get a kick out of that as it happens to you as well if it hasn't already. So what's your goal? You know, we really do need to figure that out, you know, to be the best auto shop operator that ever lived. I'll be honest with you, that was never my goal. Not to mention, this resembles a lot of us on some days with all the things that we need to learn to be auto shop operators. You know, it's us hiding under our desk and all those things that we need to become good at. And most of us, had we known about all these things before we got into business ownership, they may have deterred us from even being involved. But as we grow, as we mature as a business owner, all of a sudden we start realizing how much there is to this gig we called entrepreneurship or business ownership. And yeah, it can be overwhelming. So to be the best shop operator that there is out there, I don't know if that's realistic. I just want to be profitable, and I want to not have to be in the day-to-day stuff. Not to mention, we got a lot of tough competition. A lot of you know these guys. You know, Mike Brewster in the upper left-hand corner has 2 shops. One of those shops does over $5 million a year, and it's closed on Saturdays. That's one heck of a shop operator right there. Jeff Strausser in the center there, he's got a 6-bay shop that does over 2.2 a year. He knows what he's doing as far as running numbers. Aaron Clemens has a couple of $2 million shops. Same thing with Brian Sump in the lower right-hand corner and the upper right-hand corner. And then you've got Tad Batista, who's taken his father's shop, his father's owned for years, to a level his father never even dreamed of, and has since opened a 2nd location. I mean, these are really, really good operators that I don't think I'll ever be better than or even try to be. So that's not my goal. What about being free from the day-to-day drama? What does that mean? Anybody ever had that type of drama hit them in the face? You forgot to tighten the lug nuts? Are you kidding me? You want me to call the client back and ask them if your flashlight is under the hood? Are you kidding me? That's what I'm talking about, the day-to-day drama. Yes, that's a goal of mine, to not be involved with that every single day. You betcha. How about to be able to do more of what really matters? You know, for me, that's family time. You know, as I've matured and gotten a little older, I'm 51 years old. I'm realizing none of us are promised another day, and we're talking about creating wealth. Wealth is the legacy that we leave behind more than anything else. The gentleman in the center with the San Diego hat on is my oldest son. He's a service advisor at my third location. He's worked at all three locations. He's on my service advisor rankings. He's usually up in the number 1, 2, or 3 spot every single month. That's his beautiful wife to his right that just got married a couple of weeks ago. They're now married. My youngest son is over on the left with his wife. They live in Arizona. They haven't made the move to California yet. My daughter in the front is going to college next month. We're going to be empty nesters, my wife and I, and then my 2 grandchildren in the front. We all had a phenomenal opportunity last month, and you talk about a dream coming true. We all went to Disney World out in Florida and spent a week there as a family, and that was a dream come true. So that's what one of my goals has been, is to spend more time with my family. It becomes more and more and more important as we get older. And then maybe your goal is to be financially independent, that's not a bad goal. That's a good goal. That's an excellent goal. So, but how much is that? Is that $1 million? Well, we'll talk a little bit about that too, because I think knowing what that amount is really what's going to shave years off of your journey. All of our journeys is knowing what that number is. Now, I'm going to get a little personal with you here. This is my bathroom. This is where I get ready every morning. And everything you see on these mirrors and on the wall, these are my goal sheets. If you don't have written measurable goals, you are so far behind the pack of people that are achieving things, and so far below what you could be achieving if you just had written measurable goals that you're looking at quarterly. That you're looking at quarterly and reviewing and adjusting. I set goals for everything from health. I already mentioned the functions that I attend, all 3 of my shops, how many houses we're going to flip, what the net profit of those houses are going to be, books that I'm going to read. I try to read 2 books a month, everything under the sun. I literally take a whiteboard. This time of year, we're getting pretty close, and I erase that whiteboard and I list all my goals. I take a photo of it, and there it is on the right-hand side underneath the black one. And the reason why you can't read these is naturally my goals are very personal to me, just like yours are to you, but I don't read them every morning, mind you. I'm not psychotic, but I do review them and have them in front of me and remove them from these plastics every month and update them. So it just keeps my head in the game, so to speak. So which quadrant are you in? And this is a book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrants. A lot of you may have read this. I would encourage you, if you haven't read this, all his books are great. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, Retire Young, Retire Rich. But I wanted to refer to this book specifically because it talks about the different quadrants of business. The left side, a lot of you already know, the left side, the E stands for employee, the S stands for self-employed or specialist, B being a business owner, I being an actual investor. Okay, the goal as you read the book is to go from the left side of the quadrant to the right side of the quadrant. So I thought when I first read this book, well, I'm already on the right side of the quadrant. I'm a business owner. But his definition of a business owner is a little bit different than most people. His definition is a business owner is somebody that can leave their business for a year and not be involved whatsoever, basically an armchair investor, so to speak, and will come back and that business has grown without their involvement. Well, I wasn't even close to a business ownership under that definition. I was more of an employee of my own S. I was an E. Basically, I was a specialist and I was an employee of my company, but I was far from being a business owner or an investor just yet. So our goal is to move from the left side of the quadrant to the right side of the quadrant as quickly as possible. So why do we build a business? We build a business to either sell it, scale it, or own it passively. Own it passively can take a whole lot of different forms. One of them could be a son, a daughter, a family member, a brother taking it over and you no longer being involved. Selling it is very obvious. It's to make it worth as much as it possibly can sell for, because in case you haven't found out yet, auto repair shops can go from a multiple of 2 to a multiple of 4.5, and it really depends on how well run it is without the owner having to be involved. So sell it, scale it, which means become a multi-shop operator, or own it passively. That's the 3 reasons why we build a business. This book is a highly encouraged reading by David Finkel. It was a game changer for me to get a handle on where I was at in my business. He talks about different levels of business ownership, 1, 2, 3. Level 3 business owner being somebody that does not need to be in their business every day. This is another book, George Antone, The Wealthy Code. And in this book, and this, by the way, this book is very skinny read. This book is a very skinny read. The book by Robert Kiyosaki, a little bit thicker, but still an easy read. I remember I got an 8th grade education, guys. So anything I read is going to flow pretty well. This is also a good read. This is more evolved around real estate, but George Antone's definition of financial independence, like we talked about a moment ago, is having enough passive income to coming in on a monthly basis to cover our lifestyle, whatever that is. And that number is going to be different for you as it is for me, as it is for anybody else. And he talks about in this book, I just took a photo of one of the charts that he has in his book. There's different levels of income. If you look on the far right side for my flipping business, my buy, fix, sell business, that's cash influx. And if you look down at the bottom, that's a job. Anything that I have to be involved in on a daily basis to create that income, that's a job. If you're involved in the day-to-day operations of your auto repair shop, and if you stop doing that, your income stops, or if you go on vacation, your income stops for smaller shop operators, that's basically a job. It's a good paying job, hopefully it's a high paying job, but that's not necessarily passive income. That's not financial independence. The goal is to take the stacked up cash and put it into appreciating assets or cash flow assets, which is your other 2 columns. Forced appreciation is what we do when we buy a flip. We fix it up and sell it, bring it to the marketplace, and with forced appreciation anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 above the amount that we purchased it for. Market timing is very, very important. If you are going to buy real estate, there's buyer's market phase 1, buyer's market phase 2, seller's market phase 1, seller's market phase 2, and getting the education to know when to buy and when not to buy. When the masses are buying is usually not the time to buy. Right now, most markets are doing very, very well. It's a seller's market phase 2. It's not a buyer's market phase 1 just yet. And some markets are seller's market phase 1, which means they're still climbing, but not for too much longer. Cash flow is this particular writer writes about real estate. So when he talks about cash flow is income properties. To him, paper is lending money, hard money lending to house flippers or short-term loans or long-term loans for that matter. If you were to sell your auto repair business and someone was making payments to you, that would be paper, that would be income. That comes to an end, but it is cash flow. Businesses, that could be auto repair shops. If you're not involved in the day-to-day, that's cash flow. But the goal is to have enough reliable, dependable, daily, monthly cash flow coming in that you don't have to work anymore. That's financial independence. And then I just talking about this a moment ago. This is a very skinny read, but very, very informative. Robert Campbell does market timing. He is a Southern California guy, so I get the benefit of him talking specifically about Southern California, but he does a report on everything, every market around the country. And there's a number of markets that he really focuses on. And this book talks about a system for knowing when to buy and sell real estate. Very, very good read for anybody who's interested. We took the education, this happens to be what we invest in. We took the education from the real estate classes that I talked about from 2009. And we purchased some units, and this is just a couple examples. Units in Granite City, Illinois. We closed this in October. This just closed last week. Finally, it was a long closing. Dudes had some complications. We got through it, and we, with some partners, purchased both of these properties. And again, just another small piece of the puzzle for creating that cash flow. This is not a skinny read. This is a 600-page book. I hate to make it negative by saying that, but I'll tell you, it is not your typical Tony Robbins read. Tony Robbins has never been one of my guys, although I've read his stuff and it's good stuff. Everybody seems to have their favorite 5 of people that they plug into. Tony is not on my list, but I will tell you this book has nothing to do with his normal rah-rah self-help. This is all about investing in the stock market and preparing for the future. Like chapter 4 of my book talks about preparing now for what's coming down the pike. This book has some phenomenal insight on, and I'll dig a little bit into that. Where do you need to be? We're just talking about financial independence and figuring out, okay, how much cash flow do I need to come in? This is a picture out of a page of one of the pages of his book. In the left-hand column, he calls the left-hand side, of the triangle, is the accumulation phase. That's your working years, however long that's going to be. And the decumulation phase is the phase where we're going to take the money out of whatever we've created. So naturally, during the accumulation phase, while we've got the good health to do it, we need to know what it is that we're trying to create in our critical mass of cash. To shorten the amount of time, we need to be in the trenches, number one, and to know what the number is that we're trying to create. I got to tell you, he breaks it up into different levels. And level 1, he calls security, which is just having your basic needs met. And I'm going to throw out some suggestions based on the legwork Claudia and I did. But, our basic is tithes, having our home, mortgage, insurance, property taxes, maintenance, etc., all covered without us having to work. Utilities, electric, water, sewer, trash, all covered. Basic food, groceries, clothing, what's needed, insurance, health insurance, of course, as we get older, auto and home insurance, of course, transportation. I know we're all in the automotive industry, but if we're not going to be in the automotive industry for life, we need to plan for those expenses: fuel, insurance, maintenance, registration, and so on. So that's level 1 for him, as he explains in the book. Level 2 is vitality. That's the name he gives it, which is the next level above basic. Eating out and treating out for us, caring for our parents. We know that time is coming where our parents are slowing down, where they're going to need some assistance, and we're likely going to be the ones to help provide that. Clothing, I do a lot of stuff at the gym, so workout clothes. My wife loves shoes and purses, and we go to a lot of different sports functions and buy different gear. Entertainment, I guess cable's pretty basic, but movies, concerts, Vegas, different things that we like to do. And then extras, the gym, vitamins, massages, hairdos, haircuts, manis, pedis, Pandora, other apps that you're paying a subscription to. Those are all just things to put in your costs of what it's going to take. You got to come up with a number. Next level is what he calls independence and freedom, also known as high cotton, living in high cotton. Airline tickets, flying wherever we want, whenever we want. Just being able to say it's time to go see the grandkids, let's call and book a flight for the end of the week. Traveling in our motorhome, anytime, anywhere, having the money for fuel and the ability to get away and not be tied down. Spoiling the grandkids, tickets to different sports events and concerts and tennis. I'd like to go to different tennis events. Toys, cars, fun. This is for anything we might have forgotten. Second and third homes. I know a lot of people on this call very likely already have a second home, not having to worry how that's going to get paid for. And if you don't have one, I would say, I would encourage you that that's not a bad thing to have. It's a great investment. Major contributions of both our time and our treasure. We just want to be able to do that. That for us is level 3. So coming up with what's your annual cost of freedom to be able to live without having to worry where the money's coming from is what we all should be striving for, figuring out what the number is and then figuring out how we're going to come up with that number. So So let's talk about that for just a minute as well. What is your auto repair shop worth? Because for most of us, that's where our base of wealth is going to come from. You know, most people don't realize this, but you know, as I talked about a little while ago, our auto repair shops, when we go to sell, not the real estate now, but the business is worth. I look at auto repair shops all the time, five a week, and the multiples that they're asking for is your net profits normalized. Normalizing your net profits means adding back in anything that you're paying for out of your business that's a legitimate for you expense, that you're taking advantage of the business ownership. And you know, that might be your race car, your motor home, your fuel, your cable TV, your whatever. Normalizing your books and taking that net profit and multiplying it times 2 to 4, 4.5. If it's an armchair investment, an investor isn't buying a high-paying job, it's worth more. So let's put that in perspective. Let's say you're doing pretty good as an auto repair shop owner, and you're netting $200,000, but you're involved on a fairly regular basis. You're putting in 30 to 60 hours a week. That's a high-paying job. That means that if that's a multiple of 2 listing, that means that business is worth $400,000 for those of you that don't already know that. And I know that's pretty basic for some of you, but that means if you're doing really well, and you got $400,000 net, that means as a multiple of 2, that business is only worth $800,000. If it's a armchair investment for somebody and it's worth a multiple of 4, that's a really good run business behind the scenes. You know, that still only puts it at $1.2 million, and by the time you get taxed on that, that's not that big of a chunk of change. So investing wisely with our cash that's coming out of that business is going to be the key to our exit strategy. And that's why we want to always be preparing now for what's coming down the pike. A lot of that is just education, guys and gals. It's getting the education that we need to be smart investors and to make sure that we're doing the right things with our money. So I'm going to make some other additional suggestions, and when I get to the last one, I'll let you know. You can take a picture of the screen for any of them that you're not already implementing. One of them is starting a health savings account. Right now, again, I'm not a tax advisor, but I think it's roughly $67.50 that you can contribute annually, which does not seem like a whole lot, but you're allowed to invest that just like an IRA. So either tax deferred, or if it's a Roth situation, it's tax exempt. So as you compound that and build that and invest it wisely, that can easily turn into a lot of money 10, 15 years down the road. So very, very important opportunity to set aside money. Now, that can only be used when you do take it out for healthcare reasons. However, right now, we could be using it for healthcare reasons. We don't. I pay my deductibles when I go to the doctors out of pocket and allow this to continue to build. All of us should have a self-directed IRA, preferably a Roth IRA. A Roth being a tax exempt, it's money that we've already put taxes, taken taxes out of. It's post-tax money. So, and the difference is this, for those of you that don't know, a self-directed IRA, when you pull the money out, it's going to be taxed based upon the tax level that you are upon removing the money. A Roth is going to be no tax, so you've got nothing to worry about there. I don't know about you, but I don't plan on being at a lower tax rate when I retire and start taking this money out. So it's having it tax deferred really is not that attractive to me. If you notice on the end, it says with checkbook control. Checkbook control simply means that I do have an accommodator that handles the money, but it's moved into an LLC that I've made, that I have a checkbook that I don't need to go through them in order to invest the money. I can write a check and do what I want to do with that. It also allows me to not just have to invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Legitimately, we are allowed to invest in real estate and precious metals and so many other things. It's very, very limiting to have your IRA with somebody like Morgan Stanley or Bank of America and only be allowed to work through their representatives and do stocks and calls and puts. CPA. All of us should have a CPA that we do a strategy session with sometime around July and sometime around October, and start strategizing based on what your year-to-date numbers are, where you're going to be tax-wise, and what you can do to best set you up to have the least amount of tax exposure. You know, you can't fix history. What I mean by that is on December 31st, it's the 2017 is history. You cannot do anything. Even at this late stage, it's the 20th of December. You've got very little time to make any changes. And we've got some big changes coming down the pike based on the bill that was signed today. We should all be in touch with a CPA to see what that means for us for 2018, because as we cross this, and this is in the United States, I apologize, my Canadian friends, but as we cross into 2018, as we approach it with this new tax laws that are coming down, you've got to have somebody that's dived deep into those laws and know how that affects you and your situation. And we're all different. There is no one size fits all. I had an email sent to me that I'd be happy to forward to all of you with a kind of a broad brush view from my CPA, who is also a tax strategist, that gave us some things to look at now that we know that it's passed. Now we're all scrambling a little bit. We should all be prepared for this. And this is really extraordinary because of the new tax laws, but every July and every October, you should be having some sort of a strategy session. I was talking to a guy in my 20 group who just came up to me privately after sharing these details and said, you know, I'm glad you brought that up to me, because there's times when I feel like I'm the one making suggestions to my CPA, and then when he agrees with them, I wonder why he didn't bring them up. If you're in a situation like that, you need a different CPA. I just got to tell you that right now. So a wealth strategist should be on your power team as well. That's somebody that looks at your real estate holdings, if you have those, looks at your business holdings, and helps you think about how to rebalance your stuff for the most efficiency and the most cash flow on a fairly regular basis. Usually that's once or twice a year as well. That's a personal thing, but just throwing that out there, a wealth strategist has really helped me see where I'm leaking money that I shouldn't be. I should be getting more money for our investments, and really help me focus on how to rebalance. Recognize when you have outgrown a member of your power team. We just talked about that a minute ago. If you've got a CPA that you're making suggestions to, and he's thinking they're a good idea, maybe that CPA, maybe you've outgrown that CPA. I had my first CPA advise Claudia and I, because when I first heard that, I thought, well, how would you outgrow somebody on your power team? Meanwhile, I was being advised by my CPA when I first opened my first auto repair shop not to incorporate, just be a sole proprietor. And that which left me totally open to total exposure to anything that comes down the pike, for those of you that don't know. A year and a half later, when I went to switch that over to a corporation, just that hassle alone should have had me start out as a corporation. That was, I will tell you, that was a few CPAs ago. Suggestion: never hold real estate in your own name. Never, never, ever, 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 ever. Always use an LLC or corporation that has no affiliation whatsoever with your name. Not your last name. Properties, the word property shouldn't even be in there. It should be something that, if someone does the legwork, they're going to know who owns that LLC or corporation, but you don't want to make it super easy for them, and you don't want to insinuate like there's a lot of different properties within that LLC by using that word. Real estate should be in a property holding trust for anonymity. That's some states. California is one of those states. There's a few states where it's futile and doesn't really work very well, but you can shoot me an email. I'll be putting up my information to let me know what state you're in, and possibly be able to help you in that area. We should all be continually developing our financial IQ, whether it's attending classes like this, live classes, but I would suggest both classes and a coach, somebody that's knows your specifics and can help you. That could be your wealth strategist, that could be a personal coach, somebody above and beyond auto repair that's guiding you in the right direction to shorten your journey up the critical mass. Accelerated depreciation. For those of you that don't know, if you do own property, now this may be changing for 2018, but you don't need to wait the 20, for those of you that don't know, if you own real estate, you can depreciate the value of that property for 27 years. And if it's commercial real estate, it's 35 years. You can take all of that appreciation in 1 year and offset any taxes that you would, if you have a good year coming down the pike, like maybe you didn't plan very well and all of a sudden December 31st rolled around before you knew it and you got a big chunk of change, you still have time coming in for net profits. You still have time before you file your taxes to have the appraisals done on all your real estate and still do the accelerated depreciation in order to offset those taxes. And I will tell you, that's how I converted my self-directed IRA into a Roth, was on a year where we did accelerated depreciation. If you want to know more about that, I can share more with you, with any of you one-on-one. EPLI insurance. EPLI is Employment Practices Liability Insurance. I will tell you, the laws are favoring employees more and more and more. And let me just share just one suggestion to you. Never fire anybody on the spot, even if it's blatantly obvious that they deserve it. Give them a couple of days off. Let's send them home for the day. Do anything so to make it so you're not working on emotion in the moment, and send them home and then let them go at a different time, because that could be construed as a lot of things in a lawsuit. California is very lawsuit heavy, but this is going national at this point, especially in hiring technicians and how we pay our technicians, and the recent laws coming down the pike for salary. You want employment, it does not, most employment practices liability insurance does not cover wage, what they call wage an hour, but it does cover if someone came in and said you hired somebody else because they were white and I'm a Hispanic, or you hired somebody else because he's a man and I'm a woman. Those type of frivolous things come down the pike and you are protected, and you would be amazed at what it costs to just protect yourself in complete innocence. And that insurance, I would encourage anybody, write that down. That's worth the whole hour you just spent in this webinar. Trust me when I tell you. So you have to prepare now for what's coming, because this is not going to happen, guys. This is I think this was $10 in Vegas. We got to pose with this dummy check, and there is no $1 million coming down the pike. But as we all just talked about, we'll cut that. And if it did actually happen, you're going to get half of that because of taxes, and $500,000 is not going to take you to the end of your life. So we might as well prepare now for what's coming down the pike, right? So that's my presentation, guys, to get your wheels turning. Appreciate you guys' time, and thank you for having me. I hope everybody got something out of that. You guys all have a great night. Thank you for the positive comments. I see them on the webinar chat. Thanks a lot, guys.